You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to the Win-Win entrepreneurial community. Welcome again today. As always, we're going to be learning from our guest how to reverse engineer your business growth plan to align with what you actually want from your life. Please pause at this moment, subscribe, follow, leave a review, 5-star rating, like, share, etc. That definitely helps us get the word out to more people and help share the value that we're sharing here with other business owners. So please do that. And after that, I'm going to get into right now introducing our guest today, who is the founder and CEO of Radiant Pearl Coaching and Consulting. She has over 20 years experience in consulting, including at Deloitte. Her website is radiantpearl.com, but that's radiant spelled with an I-E-N-T, not with an A, it's spelled with an E. So radiant with an E, pearl.com. And I'd like to introduce you to Renee Morgan. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Glad to be here.
Well, my pleasure having you, especially, a lot of our listeners and viewers are familiar with the concept of fractional leadership. People, business owners using fractional executives. You are a fractional COO as a member of fractional leadership. So also just a privilege to have you because of that. And, seeing you as a, member of the fractional leadership community. But as we get going, I guess what I want to first ask you, like I ask everybody is, we talked about the topic a second ago, but give us a quick 2-minute background that'll kind of help people understand how and why you got to be talking about this kind of thing.
Right. So with visioning, so important, but before you vision, you got to get through some personal clarity. I always start that with my clients, is that personal clarity before we start working together. Pretty much in my background growing up in business, my dad had his own business and I was about 13. This is my first job. So, working with him, seeing his vision and seeing how things kind of fleshed out, working with small business owners after that, law firms and mid-sized businesses, and then getting to the top ones like Deloitte. I got to see everything or everyone at their particular stage, right? And so one of the really important things that I always do with my clients is ask them what their vision is. What do they really want? And a lot of times it's that people are afraid to face what they really want. It's like, oh, do I want this BMW or do I want this career? We always
Why is that? Just because they're afraid? They're like, oh, if it's not attainable, I'm afraid to want it. Like, is that why?
That's one of the reasons, but also because of the status quo, what everybody else is saying, right? It's something that they were told, oh, you can't do this at this time, or maybe you should wait or don't do that because it's too risky. And so when you face what you truly want, you really there's a certain peace that comes within because it's really truly what you desire, what you really want. So having that feeling of that vision helps you to get to the next steps, right? To that direction into where you want to go. But when we don't do that, what ends up happening is that we end up staying in a circle, spiraling, or we get stagnated.
Well, and that's a perfect kind of segue into the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is like, what are some examples or what are some of the things that, people who have businesses may see in their own lives or in their own businesses as mistakes that they're making, or what kind of mistakes do you see people making when they don't start with first envisioning the life they actually want before they start figuring, how to grow their business?
Right. Well, so, a lot of people say mistakes. I feel like there's just divine, the things that happen in life. There's not really, too many coincidences in our lives. So with mistakes, a lot of times, if you want to call it that, they're learning lessons for us to get to the next stage, right? So, but when we talk about those, I guess that I guess stuck in the road, right, type of situation, a lot of people, what they do is they have an idea and they go forward with it, right? But they don't have the full view or the full vision of it. And so what happens is they end up starting and then they lose steam because they don't have a vision for where they're going, right? Or what they're doing or what they're trying to attain. And what happens is that when things come their way, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, you get inbox messages from different folks, offering you so many different things, and you're thinking, oh, I want that, I need that. And it may not be anything that you need, but it throws you off track, right? So you get distracted. So you're on a different track, and your vision is sitting out there somewhere waiting for you to get to that place where you want to go. So it's really, a lot of times what people do is just they start without having that time to sit down, to get that clarity, to think about what they truly want, and then thinking about what they truly want for their personal lives, and then thinking about their vision for their business. Because with my clients, especially, I do this first because I'm a strategist. I'm all about business strategy. But when we get into strategy, I'm hardcore. It's like we're going to be hardcore into strategy, going toward your business goals and doing all of that. And that can be frustrating if you don't have a personal purpose or a goal for yourself, because what you're going to do is tire yourself out. You don't have the motivation. So I think a lot of people, when they make a mistake or a side, a derail, as I say, they don't think about where they're going.
Right. And if you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do think of any examples or stories of maybe recent clients and kind of what they were going through before you were able to help them get to focus on this, I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So I've got several clients who they started their business. They've been running it for several years, but they never thought about what they could truly achieve.
Right. So what happened
Right.
because of that? What happened?
What happened? I mean, we got into personal clarity. We went through what their personal goals were, what their real desires were. And, working with my clients, I go deep. I'm like, don't sit here and tell me what you think I want to hear. Don't tell me what the status quo is. Oh, tell me what you truly want. And we start from that present moment, and then we start planning out. So a lot of times with my clients, they're just running their business. They're running their business, I guess, to survive, right? To survive the next thing, or to survive this thing, or to achieve this thing, or to show everybody that they have this thing going on. But it's not true fulfillment, right? So the recent example is, one of my clients. She was running her business. It was successful, at the status quo level. And what happened is we went through personal clarity for several sessions, because I do that. And she was ready to get to this business strategy. And I'm like, okay. And what happened is that things started to, become clearer for her. And once that became clear, we got into business strategy. And she's like, wow, I'm so glad that we went through personal clarity, because this business strategy stuff is a lot, because she was operating at one level. Now she's at another level.
Mm-hmm.
Now her sales for her company are much higher because she now has a vision and a focus on where she's going, versus before, where she was just,
Right.
maintaining and trying to do sales, trying to do all those things. But it wasn't, the energy wasn't coming to her.
Right. Sounds like if you hadn't done that personal life, like envisioning first before the business strategy and the business planning, and the business plan would have looked completely different.
Yep. It would look completely different, and she would have been burnt out very quickly.
Right. You just skip straight to the business planning.
Yeah.
Based on whatever you already thought, or they already thought.
Yeah. And, working for, different companies at different stages, business strategy is so important because it aligns with your personal goals. And you have to, it's what drives you, right? And your business strategy, whether it be your revenue goals, your talent goals, or your, overall operational goals, you definitely have to have a vision for that, because, or else you're going to be operating on low steam. It's not going to work out. It's going to work. No, I'm not going to say it's not going to work out. It's going to work, but you're going to be running out of steam every time, because
so much harder and more frustrating and less fulfilling than it needs to be.
Yep.
It could be so much better.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of tools can people listening or watching this do on their own? Like tools, exercises, questions, like what should people do if they want to like say, okay, wait, let's say I do want to step back and
Mhm.
kind of get a clearer vision of where I want to go before I jump back into, what I should be doing in my business. So what are some things that they could be doing, some exercises, tools, I don't know, anything like what would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to be in the present moment. There's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about being in the
Edgar
present.
Cole, is that what you said?
Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle. Okay.
Yeah,
Power of
Tolle.
Now by Eckhart Tolle. Okay.
Yep. And he talks about the past, and he talks about the present moment and the future. And where we have power is in that present moment to change the future for ourselves. So when a business owner is ready to just kind of stop and really assess and realign where they are, it's being in that present moment and figuring out where they are currently, right? The current state, as we call it.
Mhm.
And then being able to plan from that moment to develop that plan for their personal life and for their business.
Well,
You know,
how do they do that? I mean, is that all laid out in that book, or like how do they figure out, like, I don't know, like do they write down like just like a
yes,
list of things that they like, a
you
wish
start
list,
writing.
or like
Yes.
how do they do it?
So it's I mean, you can call it a wish list, but you start by sitting down in a quiet place and really just thinking, as
I
we
assume
call it,
no email, no
no
computer,
email,
no
no
phone.
nothing, no phone, no distractions,
Right.
although, sometimes you can't help the distractions because you've got spouses and kids, right? But really sitting on your back porch or sitting, somewhere on vacation or wherever you find peace, and really just sitting down and writing down all the things that you desire, with no limitation, and saying to yourself, this is what I want, and getting excited. You'll find yourself getting excited about the list after a while because you'll be getting out those things that you were hiding, because
Right.
everybody else had an opinion,
Right.
right? And so you just sit in that present moment and you start to write. You can do it in a journal or on a piece of paper. You can even, sometimes I record it in my phone, on that voice recorder, when when you're getting all of those things in your mind so fast, you can't write as fast as your mind. And then you really look back at your list and really just be realistic with yourself about that this is what has come from you and this is what you want. So I think that's the first thing to do.
Mhm.
In terms of tools, a lot of times people, you have templates and tools or things that people have created. You can read several books. You can, look at different frameworks. But what I have experienced in my own life and working with clients is that everything comes from you. The outside, external things are just, they're great. They're enhancers to what it's already in you, but it comes from you. No one else can tell you what your vision is. No one else can tell you what you really truly desire or want. It comes from you. So I think that's the first tool, is to really get quiet and to really get into a quiet space and start to write out where you want to be, what you want to do.
Okay. We made a quiet space. We
Mhm.
wrote the list. Like, how do we, like, what do we do next? How do we take that to the next level? I guess towards actualization, like
Right.
actualizing, or at least building the foundation, or the structure or the skeleton that will eventually get us to be able to move in that direction.
In that direction. So you start planning. That's when the planning happens. It's saying, okay, if I want to be, retired in the next 5 years, what does that look like? What do I need to do in the next 5 years? What steps do I need to take in the next 5 years to be retired? If I want to spend more time with my kids, what do I need to do now in order to make that happen? Because as your kids grow, they have different stages. As you grow, you have different stages, in your life and different wants. So it's really planning out, I would say, between 5 and 10 years of your life. Now, mind you, this is a plan, right? It gives you a visual. Anything can change in that plan at any time. It doesn't mean that everything is etched in stone, and it doesn't mean that if you don't hit those goals that you failed. You have now a vision in front of you by writing it down year by year, on or phase by phase, quarter by quarter, whatever you choose, to now decide on what you're going to do within those next 5 or 10 years. So that's for your personal goals. Also, you want to do it also in tandem with your business goals too, right? So your business goals are separate from your personal goals, but they align in the way that,
Yeah.
okay, you know,
Well, they
in
might
your
not have
five,
aligned before you did this exercise because
mhm, right,
you weren't being conscious
right.
or giving the respect to your personal goals of what you really want in your life.
Exactly, exactly. You know, I think we think about the end result, which is, you know, beginning with the end in mind, which is true, right? Where you want to be at the end, and that's your vision. But then how do you get there? And then when you do get there, is it going to look the same? You know, what we wanted at 20 is not what we want at 40. What we
Right.
want at 40 is definitely not going to be what we want at 80, right? So we have to realign and reassess every single time and say, okay, are we achieving goals? Do we, you know, what's happening in this roadmap? What are we seeing that's achievable? How do we need to change anything? But there's always a direction, and then that helps you to focus, right? Instead of having those different distractions that are coming towards you, the offers or people trying to say, no, go this way instead of that way. You know, it gives you that visual. And so that's really an important tool. So it's sitting down, getting clarity, creating your roadmap or that plan for the next 5 or 10 years, or even if it's 20 years. Hey, you know, sometimes people have that vision going out, and then starting to execute. You know, going in that direction, focusing in on the goals that you want for yourself, your purpose. You know, and then when you do that, you'll see the things that are in alignment to what you want to do. Right? You won't be going after the next fad or the next thing, because you're
Right.
in
Right.
focus on what you truly want to where you truly want to go, right? So I would say that's the next thing, is to take action.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you think about it like GPS, like
Yes.
you put the well, I also want to ask you if you can give like even a more detailed story
Mhm.
of anybody, whether it's from your own background doing this type of thing for yourself or your business, or
Mhm.
from a client. So
Right.
I'd be thinking about that for a second, but like it makes me think of like putting something in Waze and you put a destination in, but sometimes you hit traffic or there's a road
Mhm.
closure or there's an
Absolutely.
accident, or
Yep.
traffic starts to tie up ahead, and then and then it redirects you.
Yes.
So it doesn't change the destination,
Right.
but how you get there and what the
Mhm.
journey looks like could
Mhm.
be very different depending on what happens in the meantime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say in terms of personal life, you know, I don't know if folks remember the show LA Law from years ago.
Yeah,
I watched that show faithfully. I loved it with Blair Underwood and a couple of other stars. And I said I was
I
going
can
to be
picture
in.
that little ding ding
Yes,
between all the scenes.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes, all the time. I love that show, and I set my sights for being a lawyer. I did everything I could to be a lawyer. You know, I
thank God you were saved from that.
I know you're an
I'm
attorney,
I'm a
but
lawyer, so I could say that.
every attorney I talk to says
Does
that to
that?
me, that you were saved. Oh my God, you shouldn't have, you know, that would have changed you.
Right.
No, I mean, I was president of the pre-law society in college. I was pre-law. I was, you know, applied to law schools and all of that. And so I had this vision in mind. I was gonna, you know, graduate from college, go to law school, get married, have 2.5 kids, and the picket fence, right? And then, you know, I didn't get accepted. You know, it was
Mm,
one of those things where it was devastating, you know, for
right.
me. And I had to now realign and reassess where I was. And so one of my professors in college, he was, you know, always telling me, why don't you apply to grad school? I'm like, grad school? I don't know what that is. All I know is law school, you know, and, uh, you know, getting into there. And so once I applied to Howard and I was accepted immediately. My letters of recommendation came in, and
It's
I
like for
met
what? Like an MBA? Like what?
for a master's in public administration, public policy.
Okay.
So a little bit still on the regulation or law side. And I went in unwillingly, you know, but I will say that I met the most phenomenal group of people I have ever met in my life, who are still my friends to this day.
At
That
Howard.
experience was just so fulfilling. And it redirected me to understand what my true purpose was. It wasn't to become a lawyer, it was to be able to work to help people to get to where they truly want to be in life. And that's what Radiant Pearl is about, right? It's think about how Pearl is made. You know, you've got to go through some things in order to get you to kind of, you know, to shape and mold, and then, you know, create this nice shiny thing. but you're kind of covered, in that process, like a cocoon. And for me, in my own experience, going through, different trials in my life in terms of my parents passing away, and then, graduating college, not going to law school, but then being able to see truly where I was supposed to be in life is just, when I look back, it's an amazing thing. But each time I had a focus, but things changed and shifted. And when they changed and shifted, I always realigned. I always, make sure that I have, that I think about, okay, where am I now? I think even last year was just, with starting my business, it's been something that's been so fulfilling because I was, in the family life, married and all those other things, and things changed. And so once they change, you now have to say, okay, I need to reassess and realign where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. But I will say, for me, in my own experience, in every single step that's been revealed to me, as I say, has been so, I don't want to say, it's fulfilling, it's peaceful, but now I understand why at every stage in my life thus far, things happen. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I definitely relate to that. I mean, what you talked about with like pursuing a goal because that's the thing to do, or like that's what you thought you wanted, but without, I guess, examining it too deeply. And then sometimes, some roadblock gets thrown in front of you, and or I was at a law firm for many years and had low
Mhm.
billable rates, and I lost a job at one point, and how
Mhm.
those things, um, I guess force you to like rethink like what do you want to do, or like for just shake things up.
Yeah.
And I know you bristled when I said mistakes before, because there's an because yeah, some of us believe in what in English they call divine providence, that
Yeah.
there's a reason why things happen. We don't always know the best things for ourselves,
Yeah.
and so sometimes quote unquote bad things happen
Mhm.
because bad in the sense of misaligned with what we thought we wanted, or what's
Yeah.
easier, but it
Yeah.
ends up shaking things up and pushing us in a different direction,
Yeah.
um, to go at a better place. I definitely relate to your story also in certain aspects of it. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Last couple of things before, in the last couple of minutes that we have, I mean, one is you have interesting. I told people they could learn about you at radiantpearl.com. Radiant spelled with an E, not an A. Radiantpearl.com. So how did you come up with the name Radiant Pearl? Where did that come
Well,
from?
yeah, so everybody asks me that. So when we talk about coaching, coaching is a part of my practice too. A lot of folks name their business after themselves. Now, if you think Renee Morgan, that's it's a unique name to me, right? But it can be very common when you're looking up reneemorgan.com.
Right.
Morgan and Morgan is a law firm, Morgan Consulting. I mean, I looked up every variation, but I really try to listen to what I call the spiritual downloads in my mind. And with Radiant Pearl, it just kept coming up. It just kept coming up. And Pearl is my mom's name, so that's the other piece of it. She gave birth to me, and when you think about how pearl is made, all of those
Mm.
things, it's on the website. But Radiant Pearl just came, and as I was developing my brand, um, everything just started to align. The folks that worked with me, Maple Leaf Communications, they were phenomenal in helping me to just really focus in and get clear on what I wanted to do.
All right. Awesome. Wait, one last little thing I'm also curious about, I'm interested in is, you're working now with a lot of small and mid-sized businesses, whereas, where you're in the consulting world, I mean, you're dealing with giant companies. You were at a giant consulting company, a firm, Deloitte, one of the big four. Like
Mhm.
how do you, I guess, how do you bridge, I guess, kind of the big company background that you have with working with some small and mid-sized businesses? You sort of addressed this already when you were giving your background at the beginning, but I guess I'd like you to help me connect the dots a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me that question. Why aren't you working with larger businesses? I haven't stopped working with them. I mean, they're great to work with. I love working because the resources are just overflowing, right, at a larger firm. And you get to be tactical and strategy wise. I mean, I love the team, and I was working in the cyberspace, so it's it's very exciting to see different things.
You were in
But the
security and compliance mainly?
No, so cybersecurity in terms of identity and access management, and then also information security. So,
Mhm.
so working for a larger government organization there, we a lot of phenomenal things happen. I mean, in a short amount of time with Deloitte, there we got a dynamic team where we get in, we solve the problem, and we just continue to drive. So I love that about large companies because they have the resources and the backing to do it. And they're really, I think I said this before, they focus on the quality of their brand. And so that's really a big deal. And that's one of the things that I really, appreciate and learned from Deloitte. With smaller businesses and mid-size, their focus is a little bit different, right? They are focused on brand, and quality, but in a different way, right? I think that, when working with smaller businesses, their mindset a lot of times is they might have the vision to be large, but not having the tools to know how to get there, right? Or sustain there, right? So sustainability is very important. And so when I work with small to mid-sized businesses, I talk about sustainability. Yes, you want to work with the big fours. Yes, you want to do those things, but understand that you've got to get to a place where you have your core services or your core tools in order to keep on driving, and be good at that first and build upon that before you start expanding. So it's been a joy to work with small business owners because they get to see a different perspective. I had one client who, was looking to, get a $1 million contract. Now in Deloitte, that's, a very different perspective, right? So, but I was just like, okay, you can do 5 million. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, and then things started to happen and change for them because their perspective changed, right?
Mhm.
They started to see that it is attainable and that here's someone talking about it. And now it's becoming, real. I just recently did a pitch deck for someone and they won a huge $1 million contract. Now
Wow.
I'm used to working with multi-million-dollar contracts, yes, but this was huge for this person. They've been in business for a year and now they have $1 million or multi-million-dollar contract based upon just the guidance that I've been able to share with them from my experience working for the Big Four.
Wow.
And so it's just been exciting to see, but again, at every stage, things are different, but it's just phenomenal to see how people light up to really realize their true vision come true. And it's
Right.
fulfilling to me. I know, definitely. So,
That's awesome. All right. Well, look, I really appreciate you sharing this about, how people can get clear on where they want to see their personal life, then use that to inform and reverse engineer what business plan will get them there, and how to think about executing or reverse engineering from those business goals. Like, okay, what are the next steps, and taking that quarter by quarter, like a GPS, redirecting every quarter. So really appreciate that. Appreciate being able to learn about you and share about you. Honored to have you in the fractional leadership community. People can learn about Renee Morgan, again, at Radiant Pearl, Radiant with an E instead of an A, but radiantpearl.com. Thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me.
Great. Great to see you. And we'll see everybody else on the other side. Thank you.
You're listening to Win Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.